what does Cold War have to do with yoga or iPhones, smartphones? Um, Individually, separately, nothing. But bear with me for a moment. I was teaching a history class. I work as a substitute teacher, and sometimes people say, well, you're not a historian, or you're not a scientist, or you're not a mathematician. How can you teach these classes? How can you substitute for the teachers? And I always say, really? I studied these courses in high school and I went to college. So I don't think high school biology is going to be anything hard for me to sub for one day. Anyway, but that's beside the point. So I was co-teaching this US history class, and the teacher said, how's your US history? And I said, well, whatever I learned in high school and college, but mostly common sense and being awake to what's happening around us. And he said, how about your Cold War knowledge? Well, I said, I grew up during the Cold War in Soviet Union. And he got excited. Oh my God, you grew up in Soviet Union? I said, yeah. How was it? I said, perfect. I had a great childhood. I never felt any repression from anything. I know there was repression going on in the background, but so was in America. Okay, so both of them were pushing their own agendas, brainwashing their public in a way to push forward their own agendas. But this is not about that. I'm just saying that one wasn't worse than the other. Spreading fear is a common thing that happens in all countries, and it's historically happened always, and it still keeps happening. Whether it's about spreading fear about disease or about other countries attacking us, it doesn't matter. It's always there, and it's always done consciously most of the time to push agendas forward, or sometimes unconsciously. So sometimes it's innocently done. It's okay. But the point is that we were talking about Cold War, and I said that, well, I had a great childhood. I grew up in the Soviet Armenia, which was a separate country, but it was part of the whole, Soviet Union territory, which eventually ended up becoming independent, just like most of all the former Soviet countries. But one of the things that was going on when I was growing up, I was a teenager, I used to practice karate or some kind of I don't remember which one was that, but some kind of martial arts, and we were doing it in secret. Our teacher used to tell us, while we were practicing, and he used to say, if we hear a knock on the door, if you open it, if it's the police, tell them that we're doing boxing here. Okay, so one of the things that I remember during the Cold War, or whatever, during the Soviet times, that any kind of contemplative practice was forbidden, and that included yoga. Okay, so there is one thread connecting Cold War and yoga together. Yoga was a contemplative practice, and yoga books were not allowed. It's a lot of people I knew in the 70s, my own aunts and uncles, and some other people that I know now, they've told me that they had secret yoga books in their library. So they used to read these books and practice at home, but in secret. But towards the 80s and 90s, it wasn't that bad anymore. It wasn't that dangerous. Things are sort of getting a little more relaxed and loose, and eventually, in 91 it collapsed, the Soviet Union. So, but the same thing was happening in America. We could say, during McCarthyism and other times, people were blamed of being Soviet spies. And if every little thing you said or opened up to your neighbors or to your co-workers, it could have worked against you. But still, very happy that Soviet Union doesn't exist. Um, so let's come back to high school kids. These kids are studying these subjects, but when I'm observing these high school kids, um, everybody's on their phones. Most of them. Only one or two kids in general are actually listening or even reading anything. So I always say, I'm always wondering, um, why did everything become so based on electronics? Why is everything so computerized? I know the answer because, we sort of evolved towards more technologically evolved towards, computers and iPhones and smartphones, but still it shouldn't deprive us of, reading paper or book or listening, right? Okay, forget reading, but how about listening? So these kids are sitting all day in high school. They're thumbing through nonsense, basically. You know, even the 1 minute videos that could be pretty resourceful, even though I don't like 1 minute things because they're not good for the attention span of children. But okay, let's say for the sake of this conversation, 1 minute videos can be quite resourceful. In 1 minute, somebody can give you lots of information. But even that, they don't listen to, these kids. They're thumbing through this nonsense every second, every second. So there is no information coming in, there is no content happening. So it's all just looking at this light and color and just basically, I don't know how that's going to affect their mind and their brain in the future. And I asked the teacher, I said, do they do all their homework in Google Classroom or whatever it's called nowadays, inside the computer, and they don't take books home? Because all these books are stacked up in the corner. And he said, no, just books are here, so they don't carry them with them. So that means they never get to read books. Because I don't see them reading in the classroom. Even if they're told to read something, they're secretly hiding the cell phone behind the papers. So reading is out of the question. They're not listening anymore because secretly they're thumbing their stories or whatever they're looking at. So there is no listening happening, and the only thing they're looking at is this fluttering screen. So the teacher said, well, and then COVID made this worse. After COVID, we stopped using paper because, the spreading of disease. And so we became mostly electronics. And I said, yeah, but I didn't say that, but I thought that COVID, I'm sure the intention of COVID wasn't to come and deprive us of books and papers. Usually they say in a deeper philosophical practices, they'll say when something bad happens to us, it's an opportunity to learn more things about ourselves, who we are beyond the disease, or what were we doing, what kind of patterns we were attached to before the disease happened. So in a way, there always something good can come out of really terrible things, So it turns out COVID happened, and it was a terrible thing, to humanity. But yet, it showed us a part of us that revealed something that wasn't that good. So we became even worse. We became more attached to electronics, and we stopped listening even more, or looking. So looking at nature, looking at trees, listening to sound, any kind of sound of the surrounding nature, or the teacher talking, it's basically disappeared. So how is this different from Cold War? We're living in a free country right now, and we have everything we need. Nobody's depriving us of a pair of jeans, or bread, or ice cream. And we have everything we want: food, clothes, and information, everything. Information is all over the place. Now it's the easiest thing to find. You don't have to go to the library to search for certain chapters in a certain book for hours on end to find something. You can just Google it, and boom, it just pops up. So nobody can impress, anyone with their knowledge, because knowledge is right there, free for everyone. So, but it's still kind of, it's, in a way, we're living in a Cold War time, because we're still being brainwashed by the advertising industry or something else. So somebody is using the opportunity to push their own agenda forward. Okay, so I'll put crap on this cell phone so the kids can just scroll through. I'll sell 10,000 different ice creams, out of which only one, even if that, is really natural and good and delicious. The rest are crap, filled up with hydrogenated oil, partially hydrogenated oil. Just, it's 10,000 colors and artificial crap. So how is that different from Cold War? So we have everything, we're free, we're walking in the streets, but yet in our minds it's crap. So we're still brainwashed. What's missing here? Contemplative practices. Okay, we were not allowed in the Soviet Union to practice yoga or any kind of martial arts, and now we think we're allowed to do that, but yet we don't. We don't find the time for that. We don't stop. We don't listen. We don't think. We don't create space within which we can listen and think. So basically, and also we're given whatever we're given, we just unconsciously absorb within our mind, within our skin, within our eyes and ears. So everything, in any situation you put yourself in, you absorb that whatever is there with your whole being. It's not just listening and looking, it's everything. It comes through your skin, whether it's the food you eat or even the information you listen. If there is something negative coming your way, your skin takes that in too. Okay, so how is this different from any kind of imprisoning state? I don't see any difference. So what's the key? Well, take those damn cell phones away from your kids. Teach them how to create space around them, how to listen to space, how to listen to their teachers, how to listen to the sound of the nature. At least, few minutes a day. I'm not saying whole day take the cell phones away, even though I don't see any danger in that. It would be nice to not have cell phones at all. People are always complaining about, if I called you, you didn't pick up, you're not available. They forget that 20 years ago, if you called somebody's home, there was no cell phones, let's say, and that person wasn't necessarily home, or maybe in the bathroom, so they didn't pick up the phones. That doesn't mean that they're not available. And now, because of this fast-paced societal sort of influence, everybody thinks that we should pick up the phone when we're called, or we should text you back. And everybody wants you to be available, but being available isn't necessarily answering the call or texting back. Being available is actually giving somebody the space, giving somebody the eye contact when somebody's talking to you, stopping for a moment. The best way to be available is to stop. So you become available to nature, to the universe. So incorporate some kind of contemplative practice in your family, whether it's yoga, whether it's prayer. I'm a Christian, so my heritage is Christian, so I'm used to contemplative practice. So I contemplate, which also is called meditation. In Christian language, it's called contemplation. So I contemplate on a daily basis, and that's what I teach my child. And that's what I create in my family, to contemplate. Just sit quietly and listen, whatever it is. It can have a different meaning, but it doesn't have to have a meaning. Okay? You might not know what contemplation or meditation is. It doesn't matter. You don't have to. All you have to do is just stop. Stay silent and just stop and listen. They say when you become silent, God stops being silent.